Hello and welcome. My name is Evgeny Rusakov and you're watching TVP World, interview from Vilnius. Today, we are talking about 2026 and the political outlook ahead, from global geopolitics and the war in Ukraine to Lithuania's role in Europe and the region. My guest today is Viktorija Čmilytė-Nielsen, Lithuanian MP and former Speaker of the Board of Lithuanian Parliament. Viktorija, glad to see you in our studio. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. It's great to be here again.
So, Viktorija, first of all, how would you rate the overall geopolitical situation around the globe in 2025?
Well, I would say that 2025 was predictably a difficult year, and now that we are at the end of 2025, the situation is not easier than it was in the beginning. So we had a tough year. Russia's war of aggression in Ukraine is continuing, despite some, perhaps hopes that it will be resolved by some process of negotiations. At least a break will be agreed upon, but that did not happen. And overall, I would say that, if we are to be honest, the situation is rather grim and threatening, especially considering that Russia's aggression is continuing, and that there is absolutely no reason to think that it has changed its objective of terrorizing Ukraine, but also of looking ahead into perhaps in the future even challenging NATO.
What would you call probably the biggest political event of 2025?
Here I wouldn't even speak only about Lithuania, but also about Europe, but also I would guess about the whole world, is America's shift towards isolationism. And I think it is safe to call it now that the United States of America has started looking much more inwards than outwards. It is set on abandoning its well-established role as a global policeman, punishing the bad guys and looking after the good guys. That means that the security architecture that many parts of the world, but for us most importantly Europe, was relying on for many decades, the security architecture that provided us with many decades of peace, is changing, is breaking, you could say. And now it would be naive to think that we can get things back to the way they were in some decades ago, when we could be looking ahead for a peaceful time, for a peaceful future.
How significant was Lithuania's role in particular, and that of the Baltic states in general, in geopolitical processes in the EU and around the globe?
Lithuania has made a consistent and very important claim, also looking ahead to 2026, in allocating more than 5% of its GDP to defense. This is a very important step. And this is 5.38 exactly, to be more exact, and this puts us in a basically leadership position, one of the leading positions in NATO, that definitely overreaches even the commitment that could be expected of a country, a member country of NATO. But that is a testament to how we see the security situation, that it is worsening, that we must do our part. And while I would have quite some things to say about that, we are not fast enough in terms of being ready to face any kind of, all kinds of threats that are coming our way. It is always, a game where you are on the,
a bit behind.
A bit behind, yes.
That's
you
right.
have to catch up all the time, so that is probably no surprise. But allocating this amount of money to defense, and our colleagues, our neighbors from other Baltic countries, Poland of course as well, are also showing an example in our alliance, and I would say also in Europe. So this is very important. This is where we are consistently being one of the leaders. Overall, I would say that Lithuania, we have been more reactive than proactive. Before, we used to be a more proactive actor in international relations and international matters, which is not necessarily all that bad, but of course I would like more activity, more strong positions from our government, parliament and presidency, and that those positions would be aligned. But I would say that still, and it is very important to point out, that there is still consensus on the main topics of defense, security and foreign policy. And that is very important. That is the strength of Lithuania. Even in this program, we have spoken a bit before
Sure.
about that.
Yes,
That for many years, Lithuania has been well, progressing the way it has, also because we have been very aligned among different political parties, political groups, in our most important priorities when it comes to foreign policy, foreign affairs, and our security and defense.
Okay, one of the probably most important topics of 2025, and probably it will still remain the same in 2026, negotiations between Russia and Ukraine, and the peace plan for Ukraine, and USA's USA's role in it. So what's your take on all this?
Well, this has been, as you rightly pointed out, one of the main topics of the whole of this year, the year that has almost passed. And while we have had many points over this past year where it seemed like there could be good news for Ukraine soon, it inevitably finished in nothing or not that much. So if anything, there's more pressure on the victim than on the perpetrator, than on the aggressor, and that seems all wrong. Well, I'm not even talking about justice, but I'm talking about even the logic of the situation. When it comes to the role of the US administration, President Trump's administration, to my mind, it is too neutral for this case. So, of course, when you look for finding some kind of peace settlement, or at least a break in a war between two sides, you are supposed to be a mediator. But still, in this particular case, it is not two sides that are involved in a conflict. It is aggressor and victim, and there I see, well, I would think that, and many in our part of the world, of course, agree that we have to be on the side of the victim, help Ukraine with what we can, which Europe has been generally good at. Slow, yes, but still quite good at, considering the changes in the situation. But of course, looking into 2026, it is very clear the weight of responsibility for what happens in Europe is so much more in Europe's hands, and we have to shoulder that responsibility, or unfortunately, we will be dependent on the forces that are not at all interested in our success and in our democracies being strong or even continuing.
You've mentioned Europe, so my next question is just about Europe. Is Europe the main obstacle for peace in Ukraine, as claimed by Russian Minister of Foreign Affairs Sergei Lavrov?
Well, we know who the main obstacle towards peace is, and that is Mr. Putin and Russia. The aggressor is the main obstacle.
Let's put it that way. I just wanted you to say that.
Yes, of course. Thank you for giving me the chance to repeat that. But, this has been the maxim, or something that has been repeated over and over again, but it's still very relevant. If Ukraine stops fighting, it gets destroyed. People get killed, tortured, kids get taken away from their families and taken to some kind of faraway places in Russia. If Russia stops fighting, then there is peace. So this is the difference between the position of the two countries. It is simplified for sure, but it is actually so. Factually, it is so. And it's very important for us to keep on reminding ourselves, because in the huge information noise of nowadays, with a lot of disinformation, with different hybrid attacks, with attempts to play with people's memory and even understanding of the things that are unfolding in front of our eyes, it is easy to get disoriented. So I think here in Lithuania, well, we run no such risk. But the further you go from the theater of action, the more likely you are to get your judgment clouded by all sorts of, noise, as I said, but also very focused attempts to propose some sort of narrative, which in my eyes is just false.
Again, you've mentioned hybrid attacks, and I cannot leave without mentioning Belarus and the hybrid attacks that we suffered just a couple of months ago. So all those recent events with those political prisoners and those balloons carrying smuggling and all that stuff. So what's your take on that? And will the dialogue between Lithuania and Belarus evolve in 2026?
I don't think that there is room to talk about dialogue. Lukashenko regime did not change any of the things that they were doing. They're taking hostages, political hostages, putting them into prisons. It is true that there has been
and then using forced deportation.
Yeah, there have been good news about releasing some of the very well-known and valued members of the human rights activists, those people who have been the faces of the resistance against Lukashenko regime.
That's right.
Yes, but it is very important to point out that there are still hundreds and hundreds of people who remain imprisoned, and for each prisoner who's let go, new hostages are taken, and I cannot call them anything else than hostages. So we did not hear any kind of commitment on Lukashenko's regime's behalf to change those ways. Just, setting free some of the people, definitely not all, that were incarcerated.
Okay, briefly. Last question. What's your prediction for 2026?
Speaking of global affairs, I'm afraid that I have to be pessimistic in predicting that the tensions will be rising further. And I would like to be wrong, but I assume that also we might see more tensions in Indo-Pacific region, something that has been eyed for a long time, and we know that Ukraine's destiny is tightly connected, not geographically, but in terms of parallels to that of Taiwan, for instance. There is a connection there, and that might be an issue. And overall, I hope and I wish that in all this rather difficult time, the silver lining could be European resolve to take care of ourselves. And in the Baltic region, in the Nordic region, the Scandinavian countries, we are close to aggressive neighbor. And we know that we have to do more to be safe. And I hope that that spirit would also be, become the spirit of European Union, of Europe.
Let it be. Let it be. Viktorija, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I would like to remind our viewers that our guest for today was Lithuanian MP and former Speaker of the Board of Lithuanian Parliament, Viktorija Čmilytė-Nielsen. You're watching TVP World. Stay with us.